Welcome to The Explainer. You know, for centuries, we've tried to see into the future. We've gone from gazing into crystal balls and reading the stars to, well, something a lot more scientific. Today, we're exploring how we do that, how we use cold, hard data to get a surprisingly clear picture of what's coming next. Okay, let's just start with the classic example of a forecast that was, let's just say, a little bit off. 220,000 computers? In reality, by the year 2000, we had hundreds of millions of them. It's the perfect reminder that predicting the future is, yeah, it's incredibly hard, but it's a challenge we've gotten so much better at. So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about why we even bother trying to predict the unpredictable. Then we'll get into the special kind of data that makes this all possible. We'll look at how to find hidden patterns, walk through the actual step-by-step process forecasters use, and finish up with a really cool technique for, get this, decoding the echoes of the past. Right, so why even do this? Why forecast? Well, it's because almost every single major decision, from a country's entire economic policy all the way down to what your local grocery store puts on its shelves, really hinges on some kind of prediction about the future. It's the critical first step in pretty much everything we plan. Think about it. A factory absolutely needs to forecast demand to know how many things to build. A government has to forecast economic growth to even set its budget. Social services, they rely on forecasts of population change to plan for schools and hospitals. So, in short, good, accurate predictions are the bedrock of smart decisions everywhere. Okay, let's move on to the real hero of our story today, a very special kind of data. This isn't just a single snapshot in time, it's more like a movie. It's a moving picture that holds the key to understanding where we're going, precisely because it shows us where we've already been. And this special data is called a time series. It's actually exactly what it sounds like. It's just a set of data points collected in order over time. It could be daily stock prices, monthly sales figures, even the temperature recorded every single hour. The one thing that gives it its predictive power is that crucial element, time. And this chart just illustrates the concept perfectly. What you're looking at is more than 50 years of interest rate data. You're not just seeing a jumble of numbers, you're actually seeing a story unfold. You can spot the dramatic spikes, the deep valleys, the long-term shifts that happened over decades. This right here is the raw material of modern forecasting. So if the past holds clues to the future, how in the world do we find them? Well, the secret to forecasting isn't some kind of magic. It's all about pattern recognition. The whole idea rests on the assumption that the rhythms and the trends of the past can give us a pretty good glimpse of what's coming next. The real challenge is finding those patterns. Now, sometimes the data just looks like random noise. Imagine the weekly sales of a really well-established generic drug. Sales might bounce around a stable average, but there's no clear upward or downward movement. It's kind of like trying to find a clear melody in radio static. It's just noise. But then, other data shows a much clearer signal. Just take a look at the U.S. production of blue cheese. Yeah, there's a little bit of noise from year to year, but the overall movement is unmistakably steadily upward over time. This is what we call a trend. It's a clear signal rising above the noise. And there are all sorts of patterns we can hunt for. Beyond a simple trend, you can find seasonality. That's a pattern that repeats at a regular, predictable time. Like ice cream sales peaking every single summer. Then there are cycles, which also repeat, but the timing is more irregular, like economic booms and busts. And one of the most interesting is something called autocorrelation, which is just this idea that today's value carries an echo that directly influences tomorrow's. Now, this slide is really fascinating because it perfectly shows the power of looking at data over time. On the left, you can clearly see that seasonal rhythm of beverage shipments. They go up in the summer, down in the winter, year after year. Now, the histogram on the right, it uses the exact same data, but by totally ignoring the sequence of time, it completely hides that story. All you can see is the range of sales, not the actual pattern. Okay, so how do experts actually build a reliable forecast? It's definitely not about staring at a chart and just making a gut guess. It's a really systematic, multi-step method that combines deep knowledge of the subject with some serious statistical rigor. It all starts with defining the problem, like what are we trying to predict and why does it even matter? Then comes the really crucial work of gathering and cleaning up all that historical data. After you analyze that data for patterns, a statistical model gets chosen, but it doesn't stop there. That model has to be rigorously tested to see how it performs on new data. And even after it's up and running, it's constantly monitored to make sure it stays accurate as the real world keeps changing. So we've talked about finding patterns with our eyes, but how do we actually quantify them? Let's look at one of the really powerful tools statisticians use to go from just seeing a pattern to scientifically measuring its strength. I mean, it's one thing for us to look at a chart and say, hey, that looks seasonal, but how do you teach a machine to see that? How do you actually program it to recognize those subtle relationships hiding in the data? Well, a big part of the answer lies in a tool called the autocorrelation function, or just ACF. The best way to think of it is as a tool for measuring echoes in the data. For any given point, the ACF measures how strongly it's related to the point that came one step before it, 2 steps before, 3 steps, and so on. It basically quantifies how long the memory of a single event lasts over time. And this comparison just makes it all click into place. On the left, the ACF for those random drug sales, it looks like static, pure noise. That tells the computer there's no meaningful memory from one week's sales to the next. But look at the right, for the chemical data. The ACF shows this clear, decaying wave. That is a statistical signature that a computer can read. It's the footprint of the data's memory, and it's the key to building a model that can actually predict. So the most important thing to remember is that we're not using all this science to build a perfect crystal ball. No forecast is ever going to be 100% right. The goal is to reduce uncertainty, to quantify the risks, and to give decision makers a powerful data-driven edge so they can navigate an uncertain future more intelligently. And that leaves us with one final question to chew on. As our data gets bigger and our models get smarter, we're able to forecast things that once seemed impossibly complex. So, what are the ultimate limits? Is there anything out there that will just forever remain truly, fundamentally unpredictable?